David, could you tell us a bit about info activism and your involvement with this camp?
Yeah, my name is David Taylor. I'm from San Francisco in the U.S., and one of the things I've been doing here at this camp is working with the facilitator group to come up with ideas around strategy and info activism. And one of the core ideas that we've been trying to think about is that before people use tools in their advocacy and their campaigns, they need to make sure that the tools are appropriate based on a coherent strategy. So that means knowing what your goals are, thinking about who your different audiences and people you're communicating with are, knowing what who to target specifically, and then once you have an understanding of all of those things, picking the right tactics and tools.
But given that the web is driven by a lot of intuition and spontaneity, wouldn't it make more sense to just play along and take what you get?
I think the parts of the web that are most effective are parts that are spontaneous, but strategically spontaneous. Yeah. Understanding that there's a moment and that you can act quickly on that moment, and being able to create content or information or present research in a way that seizes a cultural moment or a newsworthy time and being able to apply that to your message. And if your message doesn't resonate with the people you're trying to reach, and the way that you're trying to reach them isn't effective, then you're just going to be another website out there. So it's about really knowing specifically who you're targeting and when you're targeting, and being able to react and work with the spontaneity of the web.
Could you tell us a bit about Radical Design?
Yeah.
How it came about?
Radical Designs is a company I founded that now is a collective of 9 people based in San Francisco. We work with social movement organizations there to build them web strategies and web tools.
What does that exactly mean, web strategies and tools?
So web tools are like content management systems and websites. We build very specific tools for people using specific tactics. So we've built tools to coordinate national days of action, to help mobilize voters, to do more effective petitions. And the strategies are thinking about how you're going to use your website, who you're reaching out to, what tactics make sense in the campaigns that you're using, and trying to apply the campaign strategy organizations come up with a good web strategy that will make it more effective. So it started about 5 years ago, because I was working as a campaigner and kept building websites for campaigns I was working on, and eventually no one would let me campaign anymore and just made me build websites.
Yeah. So viewing things from a San Francisco point of view, or even interacting at camps like this, what do you see as the different stages at which parts of the globe are when it comes to the alternative world being in cyberspace? How effective are they?
Yeah, we work with a lot of under-resourced organizations in the United States. So the immigrant rights movement in the U.S. and a lot of folks that, even though it's in a much more modern and open political context, are dealing with similar audiences that they're trying to mobilize. People that may be homeless, people that aren't documented, so they don't have access to information in the internet. So a lot of the groups that we work with in the U.S., while it's a different context, still have some of the limitations where mobiles can be more effective than web and other pieces. But the core idea is, even though in the U.S. context, some of the tools that we use most effectively aren't viable. For example, email communication is the most important thing that we do in our organizing in the U.S. That doesn't work in these other contexts. The ideas of what you're communicating are still the same. The idea is that information needs to be small and digestible and understood by the audience and motivate action and be able to be communicated from one person to another. Those concepts still apply as far as being able to focus those areas, even if the delivery mechanism, email in the US and cell phones in more developing areas, are different.
One last question. What would be your 3 tips for any non-profit group trying to get a toehold in cyberspace?
3 tips for groups trying to get a hold in cyberspace. One is having a clear sense of what their goal for being in cyberspace is. Are they trying to attract more members, or are they trying to advocate or reach other audiences? But really having a goal, because oftentimes it's a lot of human resources and it's expensive. The second one is doing small bits quickly. So, maybe you just want to set up a blog really quickly on a hosted site. Doing something to get a foothold there as opposed to doing a massive project where you don't know what you're doing. So do small things that you can iterate and move through is probably a second one. And the third one is understanding that once you've started to get a hold in cyberspace, it's not a one-time thing. You need to incorporate that into your organization's work and process and understand that what you've done is made a commitment to communicate continuously to the world. And that communication and that process needs to be part of how you work, and that you're constantly writing and you're constantly publishing, not just spending time once building a website.
Thanks so much for your tips and all your time.
You're welcome.